My name is Roger. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister. My wife and I moved here from Colorado, as you heard. I've been here a couple of times, and it's really good to be back here with you. A lot of what I do is talk about chaplaincy, but today I wanted to talk about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. I didn't really know too much about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. I hadn't really thought too much about Mary Magdalene, but about a year or two ago, the community church in Boulder, Colorado, asked me to come and speak in the summertime when their minister was off doing a sabbatical and she was studying Mary Magdalene. And they took that whole summer, this church in Boulder, to study Mary Magdalene and to hear different voices about Mary Magdalene. And it was the first time I had really done a deep dive on Mary Magdalene. And since doing that deep dive, I have really been changed in some ways. It's such a fascinating gospel. It's such a fascinating piece of writing. In her book, The Meaning of Mary Magdalene, the contemporary mystic and writer Cynthia Bourgeault writes of a profound experience she had at a French monastery during Holy Week. The sisters and brothers in that monastery provided a deep ritual of the crucified Christ. And as she was taking communion and the liturgy was being read in French, the sun was setting and the light was just so in the stone cathedral. The reading involved the laying to rest of Jesus, the wrapping of his body in linen, and the placing of his body in the tomb. And then Cynthia Bourgeault, an Episcopal priest, by the way, she knows this story well, but she heard, and Mary Magdalene and the other Mary remained outside the tomb, silently keeping vigil. She said she had heard this passion story over and over. She had sung it, she had read it, she had meditated on it, she had preached it, but somehow the role of Mary Magdalene keeping silent vigil outside Jesus' tomb had escaped her attention. No wonder, she says, Mary Magdalene was able to go to the tomb on Sunday morning so easily. She had been there all along. She had been there all along, keeping silent vigil. Mary Magdalene is a fascinating character. There's a lot of energy around her. Who is this woman, beloved of Jesus, and what does she mean? She's been around a long time, and we keep missing her. How is it that we've missed her over and over again? The only time I had really ever experienced Mary Magdalene was via other than seminary. We had to read all that stuff in seminary. But in my later life, the poet and contemplative who lives in New York City, Marie Howe, came to Colorado Springs and gave a lecture. And one of the poems she read in that lecture was called Magdalene, the Seven Devils. She wrote a series of poems when her brother was dying of AIDS. And one of her great poems is What the Living Do. What the Living Do. Such a beautiful poem. We'll preach that another day. But this one is what we're going to focus on today. Does everybody have a copy of this? I printed it out for you because it's kind of long. Magdalene, the seven devils. Mary called Magdalene, from whom seven devils had been cast out. So I was telling this couple earlier that, the church in 500 or so decided that if Mary Magdalene had demons excised from her, that the exorcism must be because she was a prostitute or, shame in that way. But Marie Howe is like, I don't think that's right. And I think I'll describe maybe the seven devils that would be excised from me if Jesus did that for me. All right. So this is setting the record straight. The first was that I was very busy. The second was that I was different from you. Whatever happened to you could not happen to me, not like that. The third, I worried. The fourth, envy disguised as compassion. Love it. The fifth was that I refused to consider the quality of life of the aphid. The aphid disgusted me, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The mosquito, too, its face, and the ant, its bifurcated body. Okay. The first was that I was so busy. The second was that I might make the wrong choice because I had decided to take the plane that day, that flight before noon, so as to arrive early, and I shouldn't have wanted that. The third, that if I walked past a certain place on the street, the house would blow up. The fourth was that I was made of guts and blood with a thin layer of skin lightly thrown over the whole thing. The fifth was the dead seemed more alive to me than the living. The sixth, if I touched my right arm, I had to touch my left arm. And if I touched the left arm a little harder than I first touched the right, then I had to retouch the left and then touch the right again, so it would be even. The seventh, I knew I was breathing the expelled breath of everything that was alive, and I couldn't stand it. I wanted a sieve, a mask, I hate this word, a cheesecloth, to breathe through that would trap it, whatever was inside everyone else that injured me when I breathed in. No, that was the first one. The second one was that I was so busy. I had no time. How had this happened? How had our lives gotten like this? The third was that I couldn't eat food if I really saw it, distinct, separate from me in a bowl or on a plate. Okay, the first was that I could never get to the end of the list. The second was that the laundry was never finally done. The third is no one knew me, although they thought they did. And that if people thought of me as little as I thought of them, then what in the world was love? The fourth was I didn't belong to anyone. I wouldn't allow myself to belong to anyone. The fifth was I knew none of us could ever know what we didn't know. The sixth was that I projected onto others what I myself was feeling. The seventh was the way my mother looked when she was dying, the sound she made, her mouth wrenched to the right and cupped open so as to take in as much air, the gurgling sound, so loud we had to speak louder to hear each other over it. And that I couldn't stop hearing it years later, grocery shopping, crossing the street. No, not the sound, it was her body's hunger, finally evident, what our mother had hidden her whole life. For months I dreamt of knuckle bones and roots, the slabs of sidewalk pushed up like crooked teeth by what grew underneath. The underneath, that was the first devil. It was always with me. And that I didn't think you, if I told you, would understand any of this. She lists her 7 demons that live in her and she would like to have extracted by anyone. If your goal is to remain humble and self-aware, which the mystics say is the path into the soul's journey toward unity with God, then you could do worse than create a list of 7 demons that live inside you. Humility and self-awareness are the 2 big hymns in the contemplative prayer book. Mine begins and ends with defensiveness and guardedness and the constant fear that I'm doing it all wrong, which is to say an anxiety that I'm the wrong person for the job at the wrong place at the wrong time, and so it goes. You might have some different one. On one level, I know it isn't true. These little demons are liars. And on the other level, I know I can hand it all to God, this great act of surrender, this great act of letting go. That's the other big hymn in the Contemplative's prayer book. But it's there. It's there. I've had to come to peace with it after 60 years of being a human person. For some of us, Mary Magdalene is the woman who is the prostitute that had 7 demons cast out of her by Jesus. For others, Mary is Jesus's wife, the mother of his children. Part of the fascination is a result of the Da Vinci Code. Part of the fascination with this idea is a particular line from the Gospel of Philip, another Gnostic, so-called Gnostic gospel. In the Gospel of Philip, it says, Jesus used to walk with Mary Magdalene and kissed her frequently upon the mouth. I know, spicy. For me, Mary Magdalene emerges as the image of steadfast love. Steadfast love. As a hospice chaplain, I have over and over witnessed the simple and profound power of standing vigil outside someone's tomb. Who would not weep at the image of a spouse of 45 years sitting with their beloved hand in hand, the deepest silence imaginable, no words necessary, nothing left to say, just love and the most powerful presence in the world, the most powerful act in the world, simple presence. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary remained standing there in front of the tomb, bearing silent witness, keeping vigil. And then on Easter morning, went to the tomb and encountered Jesus and was told by this risen Jesus to go and tell the others that Jesus was risen and that further instruction was coming. Jesus says to her upon their recognition eventually, peace be with you. And the second thing Jesus says is the most common phrase in the whole biblical witness. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Jesus is always telling people like Mary Magdalene, don't be afraid. It is upon this commission to go and tell the others that Jesus is risen that we get the idea that Mary Magdalene is the apostle to the apostles. It's also where we get the idea, the German theologian Jürgen Moltmann says, without women preacher, no risen Christ, right? In the telling of the Easter event, every year, most of us focus on the disciples who flee the scene in fear. Remember, Peter is like, betray Jesus 3 times, and the bird cries, and others are fleeing, denying they ever knew the guy. But what does Mary do? While the others are fleeing, she stands firm. She does not run. She does not hide. She does not betray. She does not lie about her commitment. She witnesses. Hers is the stillness of that deep human love. Hers is evidence that she understood deeply what Jesus and the Buddha and all the other great teachers were teaching. That love is at the center of all of this. That not only that she understood that, but she absorbed that and lived her life out of that commitment. How would the church look different, Cynthia Bourgeot and others ask, if we emphasized Mary Magdalene and her way during Holy Week instead of Peter and his threefold denial? What if we lifted up the steady, unwavering witness of Mary? Instead of emphasizing that Jesus died alone and rejected, we reinforced that one stood by him and did not leave. How would the emotion of that day differ? And what would change about the role of women in the church? So, a side note, if you're looking for someone to blame, and it's probably not a great thing to go around blaming people, but every once in a while it's worth investigating. For the whole Mary as prostitute deal, look to Luke first, the gospel writer, who undercuts her position in subtle ways in his gospel, while still being unable to fully extract that she was the apostle to the apostles, truly of the inner circle. But mostly look at Pope Gregory. It is clear, brothers, he writes in 500 or sometime, I don't know when, that this woman previously used the unguent to perfume her flesh in forbidden acts. She was a prostitute. But here's why it's important to talk about this. Cynthia Bourgeois is convinced that this just goes beyond simple misogyny and misogyny's way of having its way in the life of the church. Clearly, there are forces that want to deny that there were an equal group of disciples, men and women, and that Mary was a prominent part of that innermost circle. They do this so that men could be seen as the true and only disciples and perpetuate a male-dominated system. But she says something even more interesting that has something to say to Unitarian Universalists, Catholics, Episcopalians, Buddhists, atheists. I see the portrait of Mary Magdalene as penitent, who, as primarily the work of the early church's collective unconscious. She was a prostitute because of the church's early collective unconscious. The inevitable shadow side of its increasing obsession with celibacy and sexual purity. Gregory's leap from 7 demons to the 7 deadly sins to lust is, in my mind, characteristic of subconscious mental processing. In all eras, the church remains the faithful mirror of its time. What cannot be faced openly will find its way to the surface in the only way it can. We are invited through stories like this to be self-reflective about our blind spots, our unconscious biases. What cannot be faced openly will find its way to the surface in the only way it can when it comes to individuals and the church. A couple weeks ago, I was in Wyoming preaching to a group of Presbyterians, a bunch of liberals in Cheyenne, Wyoming. They all drive Subarus and they found each other. It's so great. And it's wonderful. And I've preached, I'll be in Amarillo next month, in Texas, and in North Carolina, and Colorado, and the Midwest, all over the place. In all eras, the church remains the faithful mirror of its times. The times right now are exhausting, frustrating, scary. We are divided, we are violent, and not for the first time. And what I hear over and over from progressives is the grief and the heartache that comes from thinking about the loss of so much progress we've made around reproductive rights. I was at All Souls Church in Colorado Springs doing some interim work there, and we had to go out and rally for women's rights and reproductive rights. And this woman who was like 85 years old or something said, "I marched the first time around. I'm really mad that I have to march again." Reproductive rights, marriage equality, the violence done by rhetoric against immigrants, against foreigners, against neighbors, the actual violence of guns. There were a couple of shootings this weekend. We just come to accept them as like, this is just what happens in America. We must face these things, but even the facing of these things brings us dread and more exhaustion. But that's why we gather. That's why we gather. I didn't make enough copies this morning for the people that would be here. That's why we gather. To give hope to one another, strength to one another, nurture to one another. That central symbol of the Christian tradition and the Jewish tradition too, but the Christian tradition's central symbol is a nice supper. Have some bread, have some wine, right? We feed one another ideas, feed one another food, whatever it is. The mainline and progressive congregations across all faith traditions are invited to start where we are, to start small, to be little laboratories of spiritual wildness, where we are known as joyful and liberating spots in a fractured, bruised, demented world. We got a glimpse of it in the World Cup. Did you notice? The World Cup was like, oh, these people really like each other when they get together. There's all these people trying to divide us and trying to tell us like, oh, if that person is this, then you better not like them. And this, blah, blah. No. Look at the World Cup. 80,000 people sweating together and cheering on people kicking the ball around. It's amazing. And all those Scottish people took over the bars, whatever town they were in, Miami or Scotland, Boston. So great. We are called to dismantle the isms, sexism, racism, xenophobia, but we're also called to embody and build the beloved community we proclaim. What would the church look like with this kind of animating spirit? I remember being at a UCC congregation. My wife is a Congregationalist. On Palm Sunday, the parade of misfits and outcasts marching up the aisle as if to Jerusalem, with Jesus by their side. Queer folks, folks without proper documentation, a person with a felony, joyfully marching together, painting a picture of radical hospitality, radical belonging. I remember in a UU congregation in Fort Collins on Epiphany Sunday, 3 drag queens in a theatrical performance searching for a place to belong. We are called now more than ever to paint a beautiful radical picture of what we so casually proclaim week in and week out. Love is the center of our faith. The beloved community is within us. You are the keeper, the holder of that wisdom. So in the Gospel of Mary, which if you've never read it, the Karen King translation is really, really good. In the Gospel of Mary, Jesus talks first about the material world and how the world is good and beautiful. So good and beautiful that the ultimate good, love, came to reside here. One heart, one being, one will, one God, all in all of us in it together. And then Jesus tells Mary and the disciples, like, they want to know, like, what is sin? You know, like, what is this deal with sin? And what Jesus says in the book of Mary is that sin is living out of alignment with our true selves. And that at the end of the day, all things will be reconciled to the good. It's very mystical. And if that was the only gospel we had and the other ones were gone, it'd be a completely different ballgame on Sunday mornings, right? It'd be Buddhist and it'd be mystical and it'd be contemplative and it'd be Jesus and it'd be all these things, right? Jesus appears to them and gives them a great commission. He says, peace be with you. May peace be with you. May peace reside within you. Let no one mislead you and say, love is over here, or love is over there, or love is only there, or love is only there. Rather, love exists within you. Follow the child of humanity and go and proclaim the good news. And with this, Jesus departs, and Peter and the boys freak out. They flip out. They freak out. They're done. Like, what is happening? What are we going to do to go and spread this good news? If they killed him, they're going to kill us. So they turn to Mary Magdalene. Mary, yes, you were his beloved. What can you tell us about his teachings? I call it the "What's up, Mary Magdalene" moment in the book. And the big reveal, the big truth that she shares with them is this: he has prepared us so that we might become fully human. So his teachings just invite us to become fully human. Every teacher in every age sounds the bell that says, Our faith should be producing people who are fully developed human beings. Gay, straight, brown, black, white, whatever, whatever, whatever. And then there's one more thing I want you to know about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. She does one more thing. As they're in full panic mode, what does she do? Once again, she stands in steadfast love. Just as she did with the Jesus who was crucified and buried, she does with the disciples. As they're freaking out, she reminds them of their own internal resources that will help them face the grief and panic they feel. And it says she reorients them to the good. She reorients them to the good. That's the whole message. That's the whole thing. Do not weep and grieve, nor let your hearts remain in doubt. Grace is with you, all of you, sustaining and protecting you. Rather, let us give praise, which has prepared us so we might become fully human. She's inviting them in the midst of their freak out to reorient themselves to their deepest selves, who they are, what they're about, and why they're in this position in the first place. She chaplained them. Who are you? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? And Mary Magdalene says to them, remember, you are love and love alone. Remember that everything you do is out of that. Become perfectly human. Become fully yourself. And you'll know why you do what you do.